Good morning. What an amazing way to start our service, isn't it? Wow, awesome. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Church. Welcome to our visitors. Welcome to those of you joining us online. We're delighted to have you here as well. We invite everyone to stay after service, and online folks, we've got a coffee hour online as well, so we hope you'll stay for that. Now, today is our Celebration Sunday. It's the official end of our annual giving campaign. In an important way, it is a celebration of what our church means to its members and friends. And it can also be a sort of an awkward first visit for a visitor, right? So, visitors, my hope is that you are strengthened in your own commitments by what you witness here today, and perhaps even that you are inspired to become part of our community. We're going to celebrate with coffee and cake after the service, so we hope that you will stay and join us and learn more about this precious community that we're celebrating today. I have a few announcements as we get started. First, I hope that you all will come back here at 5 o'clock this evening for our intergenerational potluck. All are invited. This is all ages. Just bring a dish and come and share with us. On April 2nd, we will have our child dedication service. This happens every year to welcome children and young people to our community, to make our commitment to them as members of our community. This is for kids of all ages. Often in these services, you'll see babies, but all ages of kids are welcome to participate. That's April 2nd, and you can talk to Amanda Esco, our Director of Religious Education, if you'd like more information about that. Now, let me tell you about one of the things that I'm planning for my retirement is that I'm going to go join a church someplace and be on the greeter team. Why? Because it's one of the easiest and most fun ways to serve a church. It's fun, you get to meet new people, and you get to serve as an ambassador of our faith. Indeed, the greeter at the door is the first Unitarian Universalist that many people ever get to meet, right? So, if you are feeling a call to be a greeter, or if you're already a greeter, or if you used to be a greeter, but you sort of fell off the rotation, maybe during COVID, we're going to have a training here on April 8th. It's a Saturday. We're going to gather at 10 o'clock in the morning. And, a lot has changed since the last time we had a greeter training, which was before the pandemic, which was 20 years ago. So, there's a lot of catching up to do. So, greeters, potential greeters, retired greeters who want to get back in the game, please put this on your calendar. 10 o'clock, April 8th. There are so many more announcements, but we've got a busy day. So please read the Torch email. You can also get the announcements on our website, slcuu.org. There is information in this week's Torch about eligibility for voting for the new senior minister. You don't want to miss that. So please look for that Torch email and read it carefully. Today, I'd like to invite to the pulpit Jessica French, who's bringing a message from the board. While she's on her way up, I'd like to welcome once again to the pulpit Kristen Quinn, our lay minister for today.
The snow is barely melted, and the crocuses are just starting to bloom. But your Board of Trustees and ministers are busy planning for the summer, and we need your help. Even as spring is blossoming, the popular Summer Forum series is at risk of going dormant. You've told us through your attendance and through the congregational survey that you value the Summer Forum, but like most of church, it can't run without you. If Summer Forum is going to happen this year, volunteers are needed who can coordinate individual programs or the overall series. And we need to know who's going to do that very soon. If you're interested or curious or might want to consider it, there's going to be a meeting of the Summer Forum Committee next Sunday one after the 9 o'clock service, one after the 11 o'clock service. So either service you attend, you can find out about that after the service, get more information, and sign up to help out. If you're joining us online today but want more information, you can email Board of Trustees at slcuu.org and let us know of your interest. If nobody's prepared to step up, we'll have to give Summer Forum a rest this year. But know that we have other plans cooking, and stay tuned for those.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, now we light our chalice today to begin our worship service. Today I bring you these words by Atticus Palmer. We call this light before us in hope that we may always remain a strong community, working together to make the world a better place. When we are grieving or sad, when we are challenged, when we need help, this flame guides us out of the darkness. When we are cheerful, when we celebrate, when we accomplish a great task, when we return to a place that makes us happy, the chalice reminds us to share our happiness with others. I invite you now to rise with me in body or in spirit, and let's sing together number 361.
One of my greatest character strengths is also one of my weaknesses: commitment. When I commit, I go all in. I do what I say I'm going to do. I give it my all. This makes me reliable and trustworthy. I hate the idea of letting someone down or being seen as the slacker. I truly want to do a good job, and I'm loyal to the people I commit to. I really value my relationships. It also means that I have stuck with volunteer roles, jobs, and even people to the point that it has not been positive for me. It means I am sometimes overcommitted. I've stayed when I should have left. I've dug my heels in and put my head down when maybe I could have made a different choice. I've stuck by people even when they've hurt me. I'm aware of the juxtaposition. I've been working on it. I've been trying to be thoughtful of what and who I say yes to. So when the opportunity to join the lay ministry presented, I was cautious. Having spent 17 years teaching RE and having just come off a term on the church's board of trustees, I was honestly ready to just come to church and listen to the sermons. I had to consider the time commitment. Reverend Ian said to expect 2 1.5-hour meetings a month, some between meeting readings and 1 Sunday a month. No big deal, right? I had to consider the emotional commitment because my time on the board gave me some insight into what that commitment might really look like. I thought hard before saying yes. The reasons I said yes are complicated, and I'm still unpacking them myself. I was confident I knew what I was getting into. I saw this opportunity as a new and unique chance to participate in the life of this church that I have spent the past 21 years being a part of. But I was a little wary. I was worried what I had to say might not be that valuable. But I might not find what I've been seeking with First Church. And yet I wasn't entirely sure what I was seeking. Not exactly. After each homily, I have often been asked to explain what the time commitment and process is really like with the lay minister program. I'm not sure I can really do it justice. Yes, we meet twice a month. One meeting is dedicated to discussing the readings we had been provided at the end of the previous meeting. The readings are linked to the upcoming month's ministerial theme in a way that is thought-provoking and slightly intimidating. I've been exposed to new ideas, authors, and concepts. The discussion is always thoughtful, robust, and inspiring, which is good because the readings often leave me feeling like a 7th grader reading Shakespeare. A little out of my league and quite sure there is a lot more to unpack. So thankfully, our discussions take the time to not just dig into the readings, but into our thoughts on them. Then we are sent home to write the first draft of our homily. My mind drifts to the topic, the readings, and the discussion multiple times a day. I am constantly forming and reforming the first sentence, the message, and the tone I hope to convey. I am challenging myself to think with more complexity and to share parts of myself that I usually hold pretty close. This process has been harder than I ever could have imagined. The second meeting entails each of us taking a turn standing in the God box and reading our first draft. We give each reader input. We have learned to listen deeply to each other, to trust each other, to give feedback that is meaningful, thoughtful, and truthful. We've also learned to take that feedback and learn from it. This process is unique in a world that is quick to criticize or judge. There's none of that, just a true desire to help each other give the talk we really intend to give. Our homily is always adapted based on the feedback. I am ever so grateful I said yes, but for unexpected reasons. Being a part of this group has introduced me to 2 men I might not otherwise have gotten to know. Beck and Rentron are thoughtful, complex, and so intelligent. I am lucky to call them friends. They have impacted the way I see the world, have given words to ideas that were deeply germinating in my mind, and exhibited a kindness that has made difficult conversations seem somehow tender. Being a part of this group has deepened my relationship with Nancy. Nancy and I taught RE together for many years. I've always admired her. But now that we've shared our thoughts on grief, parenting, spiritual growth, and personal development, my admiration has grown exponentially. And Reverend Ian, he pushes us to think deeper, to read religious and spiritual texts that I have avoided because, well, frankly, they're work to read, and to explore how to give and receive feedback in a meaningful way. Not an easy thing to do, while also creating a space that feels safe enough to do that work. This group has given me the opportunity to explore my spiritual self in a way that I just haven't really done before. Writing each month's homily has allowed me to explore the relationship between my life experiences and my spirituality. I have been able to dig deeper into what this really looks like, to find connections and to heal festering wounds. Reverend Ian encouraged us to take this process to the next level and to consider how it might relate to the congregation. To simply consider that what we have to say might resonate with someone listening. He pushed us to think that we are a part of the ministry of this church. I'd never really seen myself in this way before. It shifted my thinking to see that we are, each and every one of us, part of the ministry of this church. And while this commitment took more time and more emotional reserve than I anticipated, it has given me what I was looking for, a deeper sense of spiritual connection, new relationships, and some healing.
Today is the official closing date of our annual campaign, which in years past might have been called our stewardship campaign. But I've been thinking more closely about that word lately, wondering if it's really the best word for what we're doing. And I've concluded that stewardship is not really about fundraising. To be a steward is to be a caretaker. Think of a flight attendant who back in the day would have been called a stewardess, or even earlier, a steward on a marine vessel. The steward was the person who looked after the onboard supplies for the crew and passengers. They were not the procurement specialists. They were the caretakers. So then, stewardship is about taking care of what you have. Stewardship is about taking care of what sustains you, what is valuable, making sure it lasts. And there are many ways to see that kind of stewardship happening in our church. One thinks immediately of those who care for our buildings, But there are other, more subtle ways to be stewards. How might the caring team be involved in stewardship? How might the religious education team be doing stewardship? How might the choir be stewards? Or whatever team you're on right now. So where does fundraising fit in? Well, the other day, I made a new acquaintance who told me that they come to this church occasionally but haven't been in a while. And you know what I said to them? I said, you should come back right now because we're in the middle of our annual campaign and it would be a great time to make a gift to the church. Does that seem too forward? I mean, Wayne Gretzky said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But I really did have her best interests in mind. You see, making a gift to the church increases your commitment, not the other way around. It starts with the gift. When we are moved to give something to a church, then we become invested literally in what that church is creating in the world. Invested in what that church is generating through that gift. And that investment is what expands our hearts so that we can receive the best that others have to offer. Generosity is the practice of generating community through giving, and stewardship is the practice of caring for what has been generated. We create something new together, and then we tend it and grow it together over time. And that's why I've come to prefer the word generosity as the word that describes the place where we put fundraising. Now, this is not something that you can hand over to a single expert or a single dedicated volunteer. No one person should be holding this sacred task. All of us should feel comfortable talking about money and giving. All of us should feel comfortable asking each other for money and time and authenticity, because those gifts belong to the whole community. They belong to each of you, not in some abstract idea of an institution or a nonprofit, but they belong to you in a real way. So today I invite each of you to consider what you are generating with your gift and to notice, to really pay attention to what that gift generates in your life in terms of connection, beauty, and transformation. How you don't have to wait to be a better person to make that gift. The gift itself generates betterness. Giving is the gift itself. May we all be enlarged by our giving today. Amen.
So now's the time when we collect the offertory. But I wanted to give you a little bit of an update about where we're at in the pledge. So 2 years ago, you had a different pledge style. You would start the pledge with Celebration Sunday instead of ending it, which is what we do now. And what that meant was Becky Heel was calling people in July, being like, get your pledge in. And we decided that we would try something different. And so we starting last year, we started the pledge in January, and today is Celebration Sunday, and we get to reveal to you, behind the curtain, what people have pledged. And so it's been a big cultural adjustment, and I want to say you've done amazing. You've done an amazing job making a big switch, because you did it that other way for a long time. And so our goal this year was $500,000, which is a lot of money. And so today, Stephanie, our amazing, the superhero who works in that office right over there, Stephanie the superhero, said that we have $462,278 pledged. So we are like so close. 183 pledges. We typically get about 210, so we are just about there. Becky is not going to be making phone calls in July. She's going to. People are going to make phone calls in the next couple weeks, I think, and we're going to wrap it up. We're going to be there, and we will have made our pledge. It is a fantastic transformation you have done in terms of your culture. So congratulations. Amazing. Now, I want to give another little shout out because the pledge is the biggest part of our budget, right? But the whole budget's about $700,000, and so we get in money from the plate that we collect, which will happen in a couple minutes, and then some other gifts and rentals and things like that. And Starlin and I, who also, like everyone named S gets a superhero. Starlin, superhero. We've been working on the budget, and we were about $15,000 short on the budget. We were like, how are we going to do this? Because as you may have noticed, things have gotten more expensive. This thing called inflation messed with our salaries. So we had to give everybody COLA just so that they could not be losing money, right? And so we were about $15,000 short. And we were at sort of a celebration party at Nikki's house last night. And I told people we were off by about $15,000. And within about 10 minutes, we'd come up with the other 15. So fingers crossed, it is going to be, if I haven't messed up, like I'm a preacher, I'm not a math guy, but I think we're going to be A-okay. And it's just, you've done an amazing job this year, and you deserve a round of applause. So congratulations. Now, the plate we're going to pass, that is part of how we take it in. We take in about $30,000 every year just on the plate. And if you like giving, you can put cash in the plate, or you can give by scanning this little QR code. We take hundreds, also 20s, and any amount, $1, but folding money. We like folding money. But also you can scan it here. And I just want to say thank you. It's been a real joy doing this transformative work with you. My time is wrapping up, and I can sort of see it coming, and I can feel it coming. But it has been a phenomenal journey with you, and I just want to say that I've loved it, and thank you. The offertory will now be accepted gratefully.
Hope
young people in the room today, so you're going to have to ask your parents about what I'm about to reference, because it's like prehistoric times. Maybe before, like oral culture, probably. In 1984, I know, you didn't even know there was an 84. In 1984 and 19, they're like, a 19? Ooh, that's old. The Statue of Liberty was closed for renovations to prepare her for the centennial celebration that was going to take place 2 years later. But when they began to examine the structure to estimate the extent of the renovations, they found, what they found still surprises me. Each of the 1,350 ribs giving her shape had to be replaced, having lost 50% of their thickness due to corrosion. Large holes in the copper skin needed to be patched. The internal structure of her upraised right arm had to be completely reworked, and the original torch was removed altogether because it was deemed beyond repair. It was a degree of cosmetic surgery that probably made Utah envious. I know, I know. I'm out of here soon. You guys are like... But it also left me wondering, like, who's paying attention to this thing? Right? It's a pretty big, it's an important part of our nation. And, like, it sounds like the whole thing had to be fixed. Now, if you remember this restoration, it's likely due to the multifaceted fundraising effort that surrounded it. The renovation of Statue of Liberty is considered one of the first and the best cause marketing campaigns where private funds were sought to match public funds in order to raise the $87 million needed to bring her back to glory. Now, $87 million isn't actually that much for a nation of our size, but Ronald Reagan appealed to the public to take ownership of this most prized possession, right? Our most prized symbol. And it's one of the few moments where I actually agreed with him. Encouraging Americans to own part of the restoration process was an opportunity for us as citizens to act as stakeholders in the American credo. Stakeholders in the beliefs that we hold that guide how we behave. Now, this credo, much like the notion of liberty that the lady is supposed to symbolize, is amorphous in that it's something that's really articulated by our hearts more than our mouths. Truly, when we try to tell one another what this American credo is, we often find ourselves in trouble, sometimes even in conflict with others who articulate it differently than we do. What it means to be an American and to live within the ideal of this nation varies pretty widely. Still, I do believe in the idea of this American credo. I believe an American credo exists. I believe that there is a distinct Americanness to our culture, part of which is that we don't actually all agree on what it means. We are a people of an idea. Right? Our concept of nationhood is less attached to geography or language or ethnic origin than it is to a set of principles, perhaps chief among them the principle of liberty. Rather than a people bound by centuries of living in the same region, hunting the same animals, farming the same crops, dancing the same rituals, we offer praise at an altar emblazoned with the word freedom. Much like the Hebrew people who followed Moses out of Egypt, our credo speaks of a promised land that we have not yet seen. Many of us are are ready to find fault in the promises made by the flawed men who framed our nation. But finding fault is not a rejection of the credo. By finding fault, we are actually insisting that it be lived out. But the parallel with the Hebrew people doesn't stop there. If you recall the story, many of the people following Moses began to grow tired and angry because the Exodus was taking too long. They began to demand a return to Egypt because they felt lost. A demand to return to slavery. Right? Slavery felt more secure. And in our own way, fear has gripped many of our people, too many of them, really. We are seeing whole regions of our nation actively choosing fascism because it feels safer. Surface-level readings attribute this to a deep racism and homophobia in our national character, and I'm not saying that doesn't exist. It does. But I also believe that this does not give enough credit to our people while simultaneously ignoring some of the real pressures that people are facing because of the terrible financial situation we're in. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. When I drove across this country 2 years ago, I took this circuitous route because I wanted to see some of the off-beaten bits of Americana on the way that I was just kind of excited to see. But what really surprised me, what surprised me most, was how poor we are. This nation has been gutted. It feels like no one is paying attention. Is there racism? Is there homophobia? Yes. Is this what's driving the fascism? I don't know. But when you are hungry, you are angry. And this nation is hungry, and it is turning on itself. Government does not bring us liberty, and it should never be left in charge of the authority of defining what liberty means. That's something that can only be authenticated by the credo that lives in our hearts. Liberty must be lived, not written down. A law about liberty is like looking at a finger pointing to the moon, to use that old phrase. You're missing it if you're looking at the law. I don't believe that government has the ability to teach us how to care for one another. It never actually works that way. Any progressive government that is caring for the least of us is always birthed by the credo that is living in our hearts. I find myself sometimes in tension with this sort of Republican line of thinking that indicts big government, right? And I don't want to be confused there, because I often feel like the indictment of government rarely carries the mark of authenticity that my American credo recognizes. Too often that indictment is a paper-thin masking of unbridled greed, individualistic strivings, and racism and homophobia. That said, I'm often not particularly comfortable with Democrats either, many of whom have stood around just watching as the ribs giving our nation shape have corroded away. I don't look to government to lead us. Government is reactive, or responsive if you want to be generous. But it feels like we are walking in the wilderness on our own right now. I do not have a problem paying more taxes. But I want to be inspired. I want to be called to action. This is what my credo says to me. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech and of press, the right of assembly. These are words written in the American Decalogue, but they are pointing to the liberty that must be lived. When I was about 13, or so, when the renovation of Lady Liberty was taking place. And I probably remember it because there was, Life magazine published a special edition commemorating the centennial. It was telling the history and the significance of her symbolism to us as Americans, but also to the world. And part of the narrative was that the statue is, she stands here on American soil, but the ideal, well, she lives everywhere. And I know exactly where I was. I was sitting at the island in our kitchen because I was reading through a section in Life that had collected these letters sent into the foundation that was overseeing the collection of private donations. And there was one letter that I still think about. Everything else is kind of faded. But this letter, it was short. It was really just a couple lines long. A Polish man, still living behind the Iron Curtains, 1984, had mailed in 2 $1 bills. He didn't expect to see the Statue of Liberty, and he lamented that $2 were all that he could send, but he needed her. He needed to participate in the caring for her. So in his hours of darkness, living beneath a government that despised the freedoms that we often just take for granted, she was there for him. Somewhere out there was a different future, free from fear, emboldened by hope. And that letter has never left me. I suppose in part because it became part of my credo, spoken by my heart. My nation does not exist for me. And as I was writing this, I became cautious. Because there was this part of me that was choking on my own nihilism. Truly. Right? There was a voice in my head that was just like, that's not what America's about. Rah, 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 Just, boy, I wrote this line and then I became super pessimistic right away. I was disturbed with the words because of the approximation to the jingoism that has become so rampant. And I understood the frustration of those following Moses, wandering endlessly through the desert. Where is this promised land? But the voice of nihilism is the corrosion on the ribs of my credo. And like the statue itself, it is time for us to invest in the restoration of who we are. Our economy has been ravaged. A few people have plundered this nation by distracting the masses, saying that there are barbarians at the gate, all the while looting the coffers from within. The deregulation heralded by Reagan has resulted in the greatest historical swindle that Wall Street could ever have manufactured, the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich of all time. And we have been mired in endless war. Scandal has become a way of life for us. Education and housing have become unattainable for this new generation. Sometimes it feels like every one of our ribs needs to be replaced. And Poland is now part of the European Union, enjoys freedoms today that were just dreams 2 decades ago, but there are still many people around the world who are in desperate need of a symbol of freedom and hope. Where do they turn? Where do we turn? For those of you who are visiting for the first time, and I see your little tags, some of you anyway, I hope you'll indulge me just for a moment. You see, today, as you know, is the end of our pledge drive. Right? And Unitarian Universalists pay for our own communities, right? That's why we hold a pledge drive every year. people commit to a certain amount of financial support. It's a sacrifice that we make because we believe this community helps us live out the credo of our hearts. Every UU church is independent. There is no hierarchy. There's no mother church that can come and give us money or take our money if we run out, right? We do it by ourselves, for ourselves. It is the birthplace of our democracy. And sometimes at this time of the year, like we can get really hyper-focused on details in the budget, like have we included enough for raises to match inflation? What do we do about the copier? Like who signed that goddamn copier lease? It's so expensive. What do we do about maintenance? But this is not actually why we pledge money. We don't pledge money for these detailed things. We pledge because we need a place to give us hope. It's not just enough to have a place that combats our nihilism, right? We need a place that gives us hope. The purpose of church is not to give you the truth. It is to help you hold on to your vision of the transformed world. We may not make it there. We may not make it to the promised land ourselves, but we invest in the credo that is alive in our hearts, because there are generations who are coming who need us to do the work today, who need us to defend and restore liberty today. The government is not going to take the lead, right? It is responsive to the leadership that comes from the citizens. It is the leadership that comes from those of you who are sitting in the pews right now. Our work together is to clarify the credo living in our hearts. What does it mean to be a liberty-loving people? And then to use that credo to guide our lives. So today is an intergenerational service, which means we've got an interactive portion, right? In your pews, you're going to find a box with some paper butterflies. And this paper is made with wildflower seeds in the paper itself. And what I would like you to do is take a few moments and write down the essence of your credo. Write down the essence of the beliefs that are alive in your heart, the ones that guide your life, that guide your actions. And when you finish this brief thing, find someone else in this room who you don't know, or you don't know that well. Now, look, if this is your first time and you're like, that's too much. As I said earlier, I was like, most of these people are pretty nice. And people are like, most of them. All of the people are pretty nice. No, they are. Everyone is really nice, right? They want to hear what you believe, and they want to tell you what they believe. And if it feels like too much, don't worry. You can just hang out. But take a few moments, write down what you believe, find someone you don't know, swap butterflies, and then when you get home, plant the butterfly. Maybe it's in a pot, maybe it's outside. Let these wildflowers grow, and may they serve as a symbol for your commitment to your credo and your partner's credo as we work together to restore the ribs of our nation. All right, take a few moments to write your credo now. All right, everybody. How about we sing together? It is number 1010. We give thanks, and we're going to sing it 3 times. I almost held up 4 fingers. That would have been confusing. 3 times. We're going to sing it through. 1010. We give thanks. source of life, God, my darling, allow us to be inspired by the credos that were shared today, the beliefs that guide our lives, so we might walk out of these doors and witness to the worth and the dignity of every being. To see the goodness of people just trying to do the best they can. May we embrace them, inspire them, and encourage them. And awaken us to that great interwovenness, that place beyond the fences that we make, that I'm in this group, you're in that group. Because there is no this group or that group. We are all of the same source. May we awaken as we just rest in the presence of it all. And fill us with grace so that we might find the courage to go out and share the story of the transformed world. Maybe we don't get there ourselves, but we share the story so that our children and our children's children can live in peace and safety and love. Amen. was a 2-sermon Sunday, right? That was the real one. So you may have noticed that David is not here with us today. He's home because he got COVID. Yeah, send him a card to see if you can drop by food. But what was amazing was we found out, when was it? Like Wednesday, Thursday? Wednesday. And the choir was like, we got this. So Holly Stuart stepped right up. We got John Major, Michele Page, Sarah Stinson, and the rest of these other ministers praying on you, right? So good. Our pledge team, we got Becky Heel right here. Henry Whiteside, is he here right now? He might be fixing up. Yeah, we got mimosas for you today. Special day at church. This is not like the church you grew up in. Mimosas out there. Also coffee, if that wasn't allowed either. And cake. Oh, yeah, and cake. Palmer up there bringing us out to the world. Thank you, Palmer. Kristen, Quinn, Monica Dobbins, Amanda Esco. Thank you, everybody, so much. Come get some mimosas, coffee, cake. Service is ended. Thank you so much.